The observation deck was empty when Minho and Taiwo arrived. The massive windows showed the stars in every direction, billions of points of light against the endless dark. Minho sat down on one of the benches and pulled his son close. "It's pretty," Taiwo said, pressing his hand against the transparent wall. Minho didn't know how to begin. How did you explain the end of the universe to an 8-year-old? How did you tell your child that aliens wanted to send him somewhere dangerous, somewhere you might not be able to protect him? Taiwo, he started, then stopped. His throat felt tight. "I know something's wrong," Taiwo said. He was a perceptive child, always had been. "The cloud aliens said I could help. With the bad things happening to space." "Yes," Minho admitted. "But helping would mean going somewhere very far away. And I don't know if it's safe. Would you come with me?" "I don't know if they'd let me." Taiwo was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. "Are people going to die if I don't help?" Minho closed his eyes. The simple, direct question cut right through all his protective instincts. "Maybe. Yes, probably." "Then I should help," Taiwo said, as if it was obvious. "It's not that simple," Minho began, but Taiwo interrupted. "Why not?" Before Minho could answer, the door opened. Dr. Haijin entered, followed by Ambassador Nari and 2 other humans Minho didn't recognize. Haijin's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Nari looked angry. "We've been analyzing the Valkyrie's data," Haijin said, without preamble. "Trying to find another solution? And?" Minho asked, hope rising in his chest. "We found something," Haijin said. "But it's not good news." She activated a holographic display. It showed DNA strands and brain scans and complex equations that Minho didn't understand. "The Valkyrie were right about primordial resonance," Haijin explained. "Most advanced species have changed themselves too much. Genetic modifications, cybernetic implants, neural augmentation. These things are beneficial, but they sever a connection to the base frequency of reality itself." "But why Taiwo?" Minho demanded. "Why specifically my son?" "It's not specific to him," one of the other scientists said. Her name tag read Yuna. Any human child would work. "We're a young species. We've only been in galactic society for 300 years. We haven't modified ourselves as extensively as older species. Children especially," added the other scientist, Dongwan. "They haven't been exposed to much technology yet. Their neural patterns are clean, simple. That's what the Valkyrie's instruments detected." Ambassador Nari stepped forward. "We've been in contact with Earth. They're screening other children now, looking for the same resonance pattern. If we can find someone else—" "There's no time," Haijin interrupted. "The Valkyrie gave us 6 hours. Earth is 3 days away at maximum speed. Even if they found another child, they couldn't get here in time." Minho felt the walls closing in. "Then we refuse. We find another way." "There might not be another way," Yuna said softly. "Then we die trying." Minho shouted. Taiwo flinched, and Minho immediately lowered his voice. "I'm sorry, but I won't sacrifice my son." "No one's asking you to," Nari said firmly. "In fact, I've made a proposal to the coalition. We let Taiwo decide. If he says no, we search for another solution, no matter how little time we have." Haijin looked shocked. "You want to ask an 8-year-old to decide the fate of the universe?" "I want to respect his autonomy," Nari replied. "Isn't that what humanity is supposed to stand for? Freedom of choice? He's a child. He's a person. And this is his life we're discussing." The argument continued, but Minho stopped listening. He looked down at Taiwo, who was watching the adults with wide eyes. His son. His beautiful, innocent son, who still believed in fairness and helping others. Later, after the others had left to report back to the coalition, Minho and Taiwo sat alone again. The stars outside seemed closer somehow, more present. "Dad, what do they want me to do exactly?" Taiwu asked. Minho tried to explain in simple terms. There was a place at the center of the galaxy. A special place where reality was strong. If Taiwu went there and synchronized with something called the universe's frequency, he could stop the bad things from happening. Like tuning a radio? Taiwu asked. He'd seen old radios in museums. Sort of like that, yes. And then I could come home? Minho hesitated. This was the part Haijin had discovered and quietly told him about. The part that made everything worse. "I don't know," he said honestly. The Valkyrie didn't explain everything clearly, but Taiwu could hear the lie in his father's voice. "Dad, would I come home?" Minho's composure finally broke. Tears ran down his face. No, I don't think you would. I think they'd make you stay there. To keep reality stable. For how long? A long time. Maybe thousands of years." Taiwu processed this. He was quiet for so long that Minho thought he might have frightened him. But when the boy finally spoke, his voice was steady. "Would I be alone? I don't know. Would I still be me? Or would I become something else? I don't know that either." More silence. Outside, a small fracture appeared in space, just beyond the station. It lasted only a few seconds, a tear in reality that closed as quickly as it opened. But in that moment, several stars simply vanished, erased from existence. "I'm scared," Taiwu admitted. "Me too," Minho said. "But people need help. Not at this cost. Not your life. But it's my life, isn't it?" Taiwu looked up at his father with those clear, honest eyes. "Shouldn't I get to choose?" Minho had no answer for that over the next few hours. The coalition debated furiously. Some species argued for taking Taiwu by force. They said one life versus all existence was an easy calculation. Others sided with humanity, saying forced sacrifice was wrong regardless of the stakes. The Valkyrie remained silent, neither pushing nor retreating from their position. 3 hours before the deadline, Minho took Taiwu to the station's garden sector. It was a small park built to give the station's inhabitants a taste of natural life. Real grass grew under artificial sunlight. A small stream bubbled over rocks. Taiwu ran ahead, laughing, chasing butterflies that had been brought from Earth. For a moment, Minho could pretend everything was normal, that they were just a father and son enjoying a day together. But the moment ended when Ambassador Nari found them. "It's time," she said gently. "The coalition is asking for Taiwu's answer." Minho wanted to refuse. He wanted to grab his son and run, steal a ship, disappear into the galaxy. But where could they go that the end of the universe wouldn't find them? They returned to the assembly hall. It was quieter now, but the tension was worse. Every delegate stared at the small human child walking between his father and the ambassador. The Valkyrie appeared again, glowing softly. "Has the child decided?" Taiwu stepped forward. His small voice somehow carried across the massive hall. "I'll help," he said. "But my dad has to come with me. I don't want to be alone." The Valkyrie's form rippled. "The father may accompany the journey. This is acceptable." Minho's heart was breaking and soaring at the same time. His son was so brave. Too brave. And now they would face this impossible thing together. "When do we leave?" Minho asked. "Immediately," the Valkyrie replied. "Time grows short." As they left the assembly hall, Taiwu held his father's hand tightly. "Dad? Yes? Will you tell me stories on the way?" "About Earth?" Minho had to swallow hard before he could answer. "Every story I know," he promised. "Every single one." The Grand Nexus space station floated in the darkness like a small moon. It orbited a neutron star, spinning so fast that time itself bent around it. Inside the massive structure, representatives from 847 different species had gathered. The meeting hall was enormous, with seats and platforms designed for creatures of every imaginable shape and size. Minho stood near the back of the human section, trying to keep his son Taiwu entertained. The boy was only 8 years old, and the emergency assembly had been going on for 6 hours already. Minho hadn't planned to bring his son to such an important event, but the child care center on their home station had closed unexpectedly. As a maintenance engineer, he hadn't expected to be allowed inside the assembly hall at all, but Ambassador Nari had vouched for him. "Dad, why does that one look like a cloud?" Taiwu whispered, pointing at a floating entity near the front. "Shh, that's a Valkyrie," Minho whispered back. "They're very old and very important. Please sit still." At the center stage, Dr. Haijin was presenting Earth's findings. She was humanity's best scientist when it came to understanding alien physics. Her holographic display showed images of space itself tearing apart like cloth. "These fractures are appearing randomly across 12 sectors," Haijin explained. "Inside the fracture zones, the laws of physics stop working correctly. Ships lose power. Planets experience time at different speeds. In the worst cases, matter simply stops existing." The assembled aliens murmured and clicked and hummed in their various languages. The translation devices everyone wore struggled to keep up. A delegate from the Kresh Collective spoke up. The Kresh looked like giant insects made of metal. "We have studied these fractures for 3 cycles. Our best scientists cannot predict where the next one will appear." "Nor can ours," added a Yulian representative. The Yulians were a species that had uploaded their minds into machines millions of years ago. "We have used quantum predictive models. We have analyzed gravitational patterns. Nothing works. The fractures follow no pattern we can understand." The assembly fell into worried silence. Taiwu tugged on his father's sleeve. "Are the aliens scared?" the boy asked. Minho looked at his son's innocent face. "Yes," he said honestly. "I think they are." Suddenly, the lights in the hall dimmed. The Valkyrie at the front began to glow brighter. Its form shifted and changed, becoming more solid. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We must speak truth now," the Valkyrie said. "These fractures are not natural. They are not accidents. They are weapons." The hall erupted in chaos. Hundreds of species began shouting questions at once. Ambassador Nari stood up in the human section, her face pale. The Valkyrie waited for silence. When the hall finally quieted, it continued. "We are the Valkyrie. We existed before this universe took its current form. We have seen the birth and death of realities. We know what is happening here." The being paused. "The fractures are caused by the unravelers. They are entities from the space between universes. They consume dying realities and reduce them to nothing. But our universe is not dying," protested the Kresh delegate. "No," agreed the Valkyrie. "But they have found a way in regardless. And they will not stop until everything ceases to exist. Your stars, your planets, your people, all will return to void." The silence that followed was absolute. Taiwu could hear his own heartbeat. "Is there nothing we can do?" Dr. Haijin asked. The Valkyrie's form rippled. "There is one possibility. At the exact center of your galaxy exists a place called the Axis Mundi. It is where reality is strongest, where the fabric of space-time is thickest and most stable. From there, it is possible to synchronize with the universe's fundamental frequency, to reinforce reality itself from within." Hope flickered across the assembly. A dozen species began speaking at once, volunteering their champions, their heroes. Their best scientists thought the Valkyrie raised one glowing appendage. "You do not understand. This task cannot be accomplished with technology or training. It requires a consciousness that has not been altered by advanced machinery, a mind that still resonates with the primordial frequency of existence. Most spacefaring species lost this trait long ago. What do you mean? Ambassador Nari asked. Your species have modified yourselves, the Valkyrie explained. Genetic engineering, neural implants, consciousness uploading. These advancements severed your connection to the base frequency of reality. You are too complex now. Too changed. The Valkyrie's instruments, strange devices that looked like frozen lightning, began to scan the assembled delegates. Light swept across the hall, touching each being. The scanning stopped. Every instrument pointed in the same direction, at Minho and Taiwu. There, the Valkyrie said. That one. The small human. Minho felt his blood turn to ice. No, there must be a mistake. The Valkyrie floated closer. Its form cast strange shadows. There is no mistake. The child possesses primordial resonance. He's uncorrupted by technology. His neural patterns are clean and simple. He is what we need. He's 8 years old. Minho shouted, pulling Taiwu close. Age is irrelevant, the Valkyrie said without emotion. Only resonance matters. Ambassador Nari pushed through the crowd. Absolutely not. We will not send a child on such a mission. Find another way. There is no other way, the Valkyrie stated. We have scanned all present. Only the human child has sufficient resonance. Without him, the universe will end. The assembly hall exploded into argument. Some species agreed with Nari. Others argued that one child's life was a small price to pay for all existence. The Kresh delegates suggested simply taking the boy by force. The Yulians calculated the probability of success versus the ethical cost. Through it all, Taiwu sat quietly in his father's arms. He didn't understand everything being said, but he understood enough. The bad things happening to space. The scared aliens. The fact that somehow he was important. Dad? He said quietly. It's okay, Minho said, his voice shaking. It's going to be okay. I won't let them take you. Dr. Haijin appeared beside them. Minho, we need to get you and Taiwu somewhere safe. This assembly is getting out of control. But before they could move, the Valkyrie's voice cut through the noise. We give humanity 6 of your hours to decide. After that, the universe will not wait for your answer. The next major fracture will occur in 14 hours. It will appear at this station. If the child does not help us, you will all see the end with your own eyes. The Valkyrie faded from view, leaving only a faint glow behind. The assembly dissolved into chaos. Minho carried Taiwu out of the hall, pushing past aliens and officials. His mind raced. 6 hours to decide his son's fate. 6 hours to choose between his child and existence itself, in his arms. Taiwu looked up at the strange ceiling of the space station. Dad, can we see the stars? He asked. Minho's heart broke. Yes, he managed to say. Yes, we can see the stars. As they walked through the corridors of the Grand Nexus, neither father nor son knew that the weight of everything had just fallen on their shoulders. The universe waited for the answer that would come from the mouth of a child. The ship the Valkyrie provided was unlike anything Minho had ever seen. It was made of something that looked like crystallized light, solid but somehow transparent. Inside, the walls hummed with energy that made his teeth ache. The crew was small. Minho and Taiwu, of course. Dr. Haijin had insisted on coming, saying she needed to monitor Taiwu's condition. Ambassador Nari joined them as humanity's official representative. A pilot named Saikijin, who was apparently one of the best in the fleet, would fly the ship. And then there were the aliens. The Valkyrie guide looked different from the one at the assembly. Smaller, dimmer, but still unsettling to look at directly. A crystalline being named Ral represented the Kresh Collective. It looked like a sculpture made of living glass. And Thesa, who spoke for a hive mind species called the Ulana. Thesa's body constantly shifted and changed, as if thousands of tiny creatures were working together to maintain a single form. Journey will take 4 solar cycles, the Valkyrie announced as the ship departed. We must travel through increasingly unstable regions of space. Taiwu pressed his face against the window, watching the Grand Nexus station shrink behind them. Where are we going exactly? The Galactic Center, Haijin explained, kneeling beside him. The very middle of our galaxy. It's very far away. What's it like? No one knows for sure. The gravitational forces are so strong that most ships can't get close. But we can? Haijin glanced at the Valkyrie. Apparently, the first day of travel was uneventful. Taiwu explored the ship, fascinated by everything. He asked Ral about the Kresh homeworld. The crystalline being seemed surprised by the attention. We have no homeworld anymore, Ral said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. We uploaded our consciousness into synthetic bodies 2,000 years ago. We abandoned physical planets. That sounds lonely, Taiwu said. Ral tilted its head. The gesture looked strange on its angular body. Lonely? I have not considered that concept in centuries. My emotional subroutines were deemed inefficient and removed. That's sad, Taiwu said simply. For some reason, Ral had no response to that. On the second day, they entered a region where space itself looked sick. Stars flickered like dying candles. Planets hung in the void at wrong angles, defying the laws of gravity. Seokjin's hands never left the controls. Fracture zone ahead, he announced. Everyone hold on. The ship shuddered as they passed through an area where reality was thin. Minho felt strange, like he was existing in 2 places at once. The feeling passed, but it left him nauseous. Taiwu, oddly, seemed fine. That felt weird, he said. But not bad weird. Haijin pulled out her scanner, checking the boy's vital signs. His neural patterns are resonating with the disturbance. It's like he can sense it somehow. Is that dangerous? Minho asked. I don't know. They passed a star system where time was flowing backward. Ships that had been destroyed were reassembling themselves. A planet that had exploded was pulling its pieces back together. But the process was wrong, unnatural. The planet reformed into a shape that hurt to look at. The Unravelers did this, the Valkyrie explained. Where they touch reality, causality breaks down. Can we fight them? Nari asked. No, they are not creatures you can fight. They are the opposite of existence itself. To oppose them with force is meaningless. That night, if night had any meaning in space, Taiwu couldn't sleep. Minho found him staring out a window at the distorted stars. Tell me about Earth, Taiwu said. I don't remember it very well. So Minho told him. He described rain falling on leaves, the smell of grass after a storm, ocean waves rolling on the beaches, mountains covered in snow, cities full of lights, markets where people sold fresh fruit, parks where children played. Taiwu listened with his eyes closed, as if he could see it all. It sounds nice. It is nice, Minho said. And when this is over, we'll go back there. I promise. It was a lie. They both knew it. But sometimes lies were kinder than truth. On the third day, Dr. Haijin made a discovery. She found hidden data in the Valkyrie's files, information they hadn't shared with the Coalition. She called everyone to the ship's small meeting room, except the Valkyrie guide. Her face was pale with anger. They lied to us, she said, pulling up the data. The process won't just synchronize Taiwu with the universe's frequency. It will bind him to the Axis Mundi permanently. What does that mean? Minho demanded. It means his consciousness will become the anchor point. He'll exist in a state between physical matter and pure energy. He won't die, but he won't be able to leave. He'll have to maintain reality's stability for possibly thousands of years until the universe naturally stabilizes or we find another solution. The room fell silent. Ambassador Nari's hands clenched into fists. They knew. They knew this whole time and didn't tell us. We should turn back, Seogjin said from the doorway. This isn't what we agreed to. But then Taiwu's voice came from the ship's intercom. I heard everything. Minho's blood turned to ice. The boy had been in his sleeping quarters. The intercom must have been on. Taiwu, Minho started. It's okay, Dad, the boy's voice said through the speakers. I still want to help. I don't want people to be scared anymore. Minho ran to his son's room. Taiwu was sitting on the bed, looking small and young and terribly, impossibly brave. You don't understand what you're agreeing to, Minho said desperately. I do understand. I'll be stuck there for a really long time. Maybe I'll be alone. Maybe I'll forget who I am. Taiwu's eyes were wet, but his voice stayed steady. But if I don't do it, everyone dies. All the people, all the planets, everything. Let them die. Minho shouted. Let the whole universe end. I don't care. You're my son. But I care, Taiwu said quietly. The others had followed Minho. They stood in the doorway, watching. When the Valkyrie guide appeared, floating through the wall as if it didn't exist, Ambassador Nari stepped forward. You lied to us, she said coldly. We omitted certain details, the Valkyrie replied without shame. Would you have agreed if we told you everything? That's not the point. The point is survival. One child's freedom versus all existence. We have made such choices before, in previous universal cycles. Sacrifice is necessary. Not this sacrifice, Minho said. We're turning back. If we turn back, the next fracture will destroy your home station, the Valkyrie stated. And the one after that will consume Earth itself. There is no escape. Taiwu stood up. He walked past his father, past the ambassador, and looked directly at the glowing alien. If I do this, will it work? Will people be safe? Yes, the Valkyrie said. The universe will be stable. Then I'll do it. No. Minho grabbed his son. I won't let you. But Taiwu pulled away gently. Dad, you taught me to help people when they need help. You taught me that doing the right thing is important even when it's hard. I didn't mean this. I didn't mean you should throw your life away. I'm not throwing it away. I'm using it. The argument that followed was the worst of Minho's life. He begged. He commanded. He pleaded. But Taiwu remained firm. 8 years old, and he had made his decision. Haijin tried to find alternatives. Could they modify another person's neural patterns to match Taiwu's? Could they create an artificial consciousness? Could they build a machine to do the job instead? No, and no. The Valkyrie's instruments were clear. Only genuine, uncorrupted primordial resonance would work. Eventually, exhausted and defeated, Minho sat with his son in silence. The ship continued toward the galactic center, toward the Axis Mundi, toward the point of no return. Will you stay with me? Taiwu asked. When we get there. Until it's time? Minho pulled his son close. I won't leave your side. Not for a second. Tell me more about Earth, about the ocean. You never finished that story. So Minho told stories. About waves and tides and ships and sailors. About beaches and shells and fish that swam in schools of thousands. He told stories about everything he could remember, trying to fill his son's mind with beautiful things before the universe demanded its price. Outside the windows, space grew stranger. They were approaching the center of the galaxy, where reality itself would test them. where a child would pay the cost that advanced civilizations refused to bear themselves. The galactic center was like looking at the end of everything and the beginning of everything at the same time. Millions of stars packed so tightly together they looked like a solid wall of light. Black holes twisted space into impossible shapes. Radiation storms that would kill any unprotected being raged between the stars. And in the middle of it all, the Axis Mundi. "There," the Valkyrie said, pointing with an appendage of light dot at first. Minho couldn't see anything unusual. Then his eyes adjusted, and he understood. The Axis Mundi wasn't a physical place. It was a pattern. A vast geometric structure of crystallized spacetime, pulsing with energy that existed on frequencies his eyes couldn't quite process. It hurt to look at directly, but he couldn't look away. "That's where Taiwu has to go?" he asked. "Yes. At the center of the structure, he will connect with the universe's fundamental frequency." Seojin was struggling with the controls. "The gravitational forces here are insane. I don't know if we can get much closer." "You must," the Valkyrie stated. "The ship will hold." It was designed for this purpose. The ship shook violently as they pushed deeper into the galactic core. Alarms blared. The walls groaned under stress. But Seojin's skill kept them steady, threading through impossible gravitational fields and radiation that would have vaporized a normal ship instantly. Taiwu stood at a window, staring at the Axis Mundi. "It's singing," he said. "What?" Hyjin asked. "Can't you hear it?" "It's singing a song." Hyjin checked her instruments. "I'm not detecting any audio frequencies." "Not with your ears," Taiwu said. "With everything else." Ral, the crystalline being, moved closer. "The child speaks truth. I can detect harmonic resonance patterns. The Axis Mundi vibrates at the same frequency as baseline reality. And you can hear this?" Nari asked Taiwu. The boy nodded. "It sounds nice, not scary." Finally, after hours of careful navigation, they reached a stable point near the Axis structure. The ship couldn't go closer without being torn apart by gravitational shear. The Valkyrie created a bridge of energy from the ship to the Axis. It looked like a path made of solidified light, stretching across impossible distance. "The child must walk across," the Valkyrie explained. "At the other side, the synchronization will begin." Minho felt his heart breaking. This was it. The moment he'd been dreading since they left the Grand Nexus. "Can I have a few minutes with my son?" he asked. The Valkyrie nodded, which looked strange on its formless body. "We have time." But not much. Minho took Taiwu to a quiet corner of the ship. They sat together, father and son, in the shadow of something impossible. "I'm scared now," Taiwu admitted. His brave face was finally cracking. "I wasn't scared before, but now I am." "That's okay," Minho said, holding him close. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're terrified." "Will it hurt?" "I don't know. Will I remember you?" Minho's voice broke. "I hope so. Please God, I hope so." "Tell me a story," Taiwu said. "One more time, like you used to at bedtime." So Minho told him about Earth one last time. He described everything he could remember in perfect detail. The way rain sounded on a roof, the smell of flowers in spring, the feeling of grass under bare feet, the taste of fresh fruit, the sound of birds singing at dawn, the way the sun set over mountains, painting the sky in colors that had no names. Taiwu listened with his eyes closed, committing every word to memory. When Minho finished, the boy was crying silently. "Thank you, Dad, for everything, for being my dad." "I'm so proud of you," Minho whispered. "So incredibly proud. And I love you more than all the stars in this galaxy." They held each other while the universe waited. Finally, it was time. Taiwu walked to the energy bridge, holding his father's hand. The whole crew had gathered to see him off. Ambassador Nari was crying openly. Dr. Haijin looked devastated. Even Seok Jin, who barely knew the boy, had tears in his eyes. Ral stepped forward. The crystalline being bent down to Tai Wu's level. "I wanted to thank you," Ral said, "for calling me lonely, for caring about feelings I thought I'd deleted. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten." Thesa approached next. The hive mind's shifting form seemed agitated. "We have been one consciousness for so long. But speaking with you, we remember when we were individuals, when each voice mattered. Thank you for that reminder." Tai Wu smiled weakly. "You're welcome." The Valkyrie floated near. "It is time." Tai Wu took his first step onto the energy bridge. Then he stopped and looked back at his father. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, always." Tai Wu walked forward slowly. Each step took him further from everything he knew. Minho wanted to scream, to pull him back, to save him. But he stood frozen, watching his son be brave in a way he could never be. Halfway across the bridge, something happened. Space itself tore open. The tear was different from the fractures they'd seen before. This was deliberate, violent, and through it came beings that shouldn't exist. The Unravelers. They looked like holes in reality, shaped roughly like living things, but wrong in every way. Where they touched space, existence simply stopped. Stars went out. Light died. Even the fabric of space-time unraveled in their presence. "They followed us," the Valkyrie shouted. "They know what we're trying to do." The ship's weapons activated. Automatically, but the blast passed through the Unravelers without effect. How do you shoot something that exists to negate existence? Ral tried to use its advanced technology. The crystalline being projected force fields and energy barriers. The Unravelers touched them, and the barriers ceased to be. Thesa's hive mind attempted to confuse the creatures with quantum interference patterns. But the Unravelers didn't think or process information. They simply were. And where they were, nothing else could be. More Unravelers poured through the tier in space. They converged on the Axis Mundi, intent on destroying the very thing that could stop them. Tai Wu stood frozen on the energy bridge, caught between the ship and the Axis structure. The Unravelers' presence made reality itself scream, the sound of existence trying not to end. "Run!" Minho shouted. "Tai Wu, run!" But the boy didn't run. Instead, he closed his eyes. His face became calm. "I can hear them," Tai Wu said, his voice somehow clear despite the chaos. "They're not evil. They're just doing what they were made to do." "What?" Haijin shouted over the alarms. "They're lonely too. Like Rao. They only know how to end things, because no one ever showed them how to be part of anything." "Tai Wu, this isn't the time for philosophy," Nari yelled. "You need to get to the Axis Mundi." But Tai Wu was already moving. Not toward the Axis structure. Toward the Unravelers. "No," Minho screamed. He tried to run onto the bridge, but the Valkyrie held him back with bonds of energy. "Let me go. That's my son." Tai Wu walked calmly toward the nearest Unraveler. The creature of anti-reality reached. For him with appendages that unmade everything they touched. The crew watched in horror, certain they were about to see a child erased from existence. But when the Unraveler touched Tai Wu, something impossible happened. The boy didn't disappear. Instead, he seemed to resonate with the creature. The universe's frequency that sang through him met the anti-frequency of the Unraveler. And instead of canceling each other out, instead of destruction, they harmonized. "What's happening?" Seo Jin breathed. "Doctor, Jin's instruments were going crazy. His primordial resonance is interacting with their anti-reality field. But instead of destroying each other, they're creating something new." Tai Wu reached the Axis Mundi structure. The Unravelers followed him, drawn by the harmonic resonance. When he stepped into the center of the geometric pattern, his body became light. His consciousness expanded, connected. touched every point of space simultaneously. And in that moment of connection, Taiwo understood everything. The universe's song, the unraveler's nature, the reason for existence and the reason for ending. He reached out, not with hands but with thought, with feeling, with the simple acceptance that had always defined him. He reached out to the unravelers and offered them something they'd never experienced: a home, a purpose, a place within existence instead of opposition to it. The universe held its breath, waiting to see if a child's kindness could save all of reality. Light exploded from the Axis Mundi. Not destructive light, but something else. Something that felt like morning and hope and the first breath after being underwater too long. The unravelers, those beings of pure negation, began to change. Their forms shifted. The holes in reality that made up their bodies filled with something that looked like starlight. They didn't disappear, but they weren't destroyers anymore either. They became something in between. Bridges between states of existence. Guards at the boundaries that define reality without breaking it. All across the galaxy, the fractures stopped growing. But they didn't just close and vanish. Instead, they stabilized into permanent structures. Gates between different states of reality that actually made the universe stronger instead of tearing it apart. On the ship, Dr. Haijin's instruments were displaying readings that violated every known law of physics. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The fractures are becoming stable dimensional gateways. They're part of the universe's structure now, not damage to it." Ambassador Nari stared at the screens. He didn't just save reality. He changed it. Made it better. The Valkyrie's glowing form flickered wildly. In all its ancient existence, across multiple universal cycles, it had never seen anything like this. The Valkyrie operated on principles of sacrifice and force, of maintaining stability through anchoring and binding. They'd never considered invitation, integration, transformation. "Impossible?" the Valkyrie said, its voice uncertain for the first time. "The child should be bound to the axis, trapped. How is he still free?" Because in the center of the Axis Mundi, Taiwo stood with his eyes open. His body was there and not there at the same time. His consciousness existed at every point in space simultaneously, but he was still himself. Still a boy. Still Taiwo. He'd done something the Valkyrie thought impossible. He'd synchronized with the universe without being consumed by it. He'd become part of the song without losing his own voice. The unravelers surrounded him now, no longer threats, but something like guardians. They circled the Axis Mundi in patterns that looked almost like dancing. Minho broke free from the Valkyrie's energy bonds and ran across the bridge. He didn't care about safety or danger or anything except reaching his son. When he got to the center, Taiwo turned to him. The boy looked the same but different. There was something in his eyes now, an awareness of vast things. But underneath that awareness was still his son. Still a child who liked stories about rain and oceans. "Dad," Taiwo said, and his voice echoed strangely, like it came from very far away and right beside him at the same time. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay. I'm better than okay, actually. I can see everything now. All the stars. All the planets. I can hear the universe singing, and it's beautiful. Can you come home?" Minho asked desperately. "Can you leave this place?" Taiwo smiled. "Yes, I'm not trapped. I'm connected, but not stuck. It's like being part of a really big family instead of being locked in a room." Minho collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his face. His son was alive. Not trapped. Not lost. Changed, yes, but still here. The rest of the crew made their way across the energy bridge. Dr. Haijin immediately began scanning Taiwo with her instruments. "His neural patterns are completely different," she said in amazement. but he's still generating standard human brain activity. He's existing in two states simultaneously, physical and connected to the fundamental frequency of reality. How does it feel? Ambassador Nari asked gently. Taiwu thought about it. Like I'm here with you, but also everywhere else. It's hard to explain. I can feel the stars being born. I can sense the planets turning. The Unravelers aren't scary anymore. They were just lonely. They only knew how to end things because that's all they'd ever done. But now they're helping. Building instead of breaking. Ral approached slowly. The crystalline being's surface was displaying colors it had never shown before. Emotions, returning after centuries of deletion. What you did, Ral said quietly. Inviting them instead of fighting them. Accepting their nature while giving them new purpose. It's changing more than just the fractures. What do you mean? Taiwu asked. The harmonization you created is spreading. Across the galaxy. Species like mime, who removed our emotions to become efficient, are feeling them return. Hive minds are experiencing individual thoughts. Uploaded consciousnesses are remembering what it felt like to be physical beings. As a shifting form became more stable. Individual voices began speaking from it instead of the unified hive mind voice. We are becoming separate again, the voices said, some scared, some joyful. After so long being one, we are remembering how to be many. The Valkyrie floated closer. Its ancient pride was gone, replaced by something like humility. We were wrong, it admitted. For eons, we have solved problems through force and sacrifice. We thought stability required anchors and chains. We never considered that the universe might want to grow, to change, to become something new. Everything wants to grow, Taiwu said simply. Even the universe. The journey back to the Grand Nexus took longer than the journey out. But it was different now. The fractures that had been death zones were now gateways. Seogjin piloted the ship through one, and they emerged in a region of space where matter existed in states that shouldn't be possible. Crystalline nebulas. Liquid starlight. Planets made of pure music. These are the new possibilities, Dr. Haijin said, documenting everything. The universe isn't just surviving. It's evolving. When they finally arrived back at the Grand Nexus, the entire coalition was waiting. Representatives from all 847 species had gathered. They wanted to see the human child, who had saved existence without being trapped by it. Taiwu walked into the assembly hall holding his father's hand. He looked small among the giants and the floating entities and the crystalline beings. But he didn't seem afraid. The Valkyrie spokesperson, the same one who had first demanded Taiwu's help, addressed the assembly. We have existed for countless cycles, it said. We have seen universes born and die. We thought we understood everything. But a human child has taught us that wisdom can become dogma. That the oldest are not always the wisest. We formally withdraw from direct leadership of the coalition. Younger species, particularly humanity, have perspectives we need to learn from. The assembly erupted in discussion. Some species objected. Others celebrated. But the conversation was different now. More open. More willing to consider new ideas. Ambassador Nari stood and addressed the crowd. I propose we establish what we'll call the Taiwu Protocols. Principles for approaching cosmic crises that prioritize understanding and integration over force and sacrifice. Not to worship my species or this child, but to remember the lesson he taught us. The proposal passed with overwhelming support. After the ceremony, after the speeches and celebrations, Minho and Taiwu finally left for Earth. It had been weeks since they'd seen home. The ship's windows showed stars and the new, dimensional gateways scattered throughout space. Each one shimmered with possibility. Are you really okay? Minho asked his son for the 100th time. You can tell me if you're not. I'm okay, Dad. I promise. It's weird, being connected to everything. Sometimes I can feel stars dying on the other side of the galaxy. Sometimes I can hear planets singing. But I'm still me. I still like stories. I still get hungry. I still want to go home. We'll be home soon. Minho promised. Earth appeared in the window after several more days of travel. Blue and green and beautiful. Taiwu pressed his hand against the glass, the same way he had at the Grand Nexus, what felt like a lifetime ago. It's pretty, he said. Yes, Minho agreed. Yes, it is. They landed at the main spaceport. Taiwu's mother was waiting, having traveled from her research station as soon as she heard the news. She grabbed her son and husband and didn't let go for several minutes. Life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be. Taiwu went back to school. He studied math and history and language like any other child. But sometimes during recess, his teacher Jiwan would find him standing alone in the playground, staring at the sky. Are you all right? Jiwan asked one day. Taiwu nodded and smiled. I'm just listening. To what? The universe. It's still singing. Still learning to be whole in new ways. Across the galaxy, species were adapting to the changes. The unravelers had become the weavers, maintaining the boundaries of reality while allowing it to grow. The dimensional gateways were leading to discoveries and possibilities no one had imagined. Scientists were developing entirely new fields of study. Engineers were building technologies that worked with the new natural laws. And at the center of it all, in a very real way, was a human child. Not because he was powerful or special or chosen, but because when the universe needed help, he'd offered kindness instead of force, acceptance instead of rejection, growth instead of mere survival. 6 months after returning home, Taiwu stood in his backyard at night, looking up at the stars. His father joined him. What are you thinking about? Minho asked. How big everything is. How small I am. But also how even small things can matter. You definitely matter, Minho said, pulling his son close. You saved everything. I didn't save it, Taiwu corrected. I just reminded it how to save itself. Above them, the stars shone brightly. Reality held strong and growing stronger.